Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video I wish to address the propaganda that has been recently uploaded to YouTube by the propagandist Theodore Bolha, in which he continues making his strange accusation that atheists believe in a state of nothingness that one goes into after one dies. From my own experience, if you try to suggest that, experience requires someone or something to be having that experience, then it does not make sense to accuse us of believing in dark oblivion, since we believe that consciousness stops after death, meaning that there is no consciousness that can experience the so-called nothingness. Proponents of GSC actually equate a lack of experience with an experience of nothing. Now, I was thinking about this recently. I think I can now see how exactly one can equate the two. Basically, with just a bit of deception, a bit of trickery, you can definitely make the connection, and I will illustrate it here. So if we can agree that consciousness is what is responsible for experience, then if you accuse someone of believing in experience of nothingness even after they die, you are basically implying that consciousness somehow survives after death, since consciousness has to be present for there to be experience. And so I was wondering, on what basis could proponents of GSC be making this claim that somehow consciousness can survive death? And then, of course, I remembered the fact that antinatalists, we like to talk about so-called non-existent people, right? Unborn children. This is clearly demonstrated in David Benatar's asymmetry argument, where he compares the advantages and disadvantages between existing and not existing. Now, of course, I am not criticizing this use of language, because I do the same thing. But of course, everyone understands that this is not meant to be taken literally. There is obviously no such thing as a non-existent person, a state of non-existence. But then in this way, you can kind of now see that believers of GSC are basically just doing the same thing. They are also distinguishing between two states of existence, where you have existence, things that exist, and then you have a state of non-existence, things that do not exist, that they do not exist yet, or they no longer exist. And so when you realize that they're dividing things into these two categories, the whole dark oblivion state of nothingness actually now start to make sense. So essentially they are saying, okay, first you are alive, so that means that your consciousness is in a state of existence. And then they say that, what do atheists say happens to consciousness after you die? They say it disappears. So what does that mean? That means now consciousness enters a state of non-existence. And so when consciousness was in a state of existence, that means it was experiencing something. Now that it has moved into a state of non-existence, what does that mean? Well, that means that now in a state of non-existence, it is experiencing nothing. And so it is only in this context that it would make sense to claim that a lack of experience is the equivalent of an experience of nothingness. Experience requires someone or something to be having the experience. And so by default, you are implying that once consciousness stops existing, it would then move into a state of non-existent, because remember, there has to be consciousness for there to be experience. You are implying that consciousness is now in a non-existent state, experiencing non-existence or nothingness, and so yes, in that sense it makes perfect sense. However, of course, there is a false premise here, which is the actual evidence of this hypothetical realm called non-existence, right? Is there actually such a thing as a non-existent object, non-existent people, non-existent consciousnesses, non-existent things? Now, of course, the answer is no, simply because it's self-contradictory. Something cannot exist but simultaneously not exist. But that's what a state of non-existence would imply. You're saying something no longer exists, but it exists in a non-existent state. You see, it's just self-contradictory nonsense. there's actually just only one state of existence, which is, well, existence. And so that is what makes the black void, nothingness, accusation simply null and void. Well, there is no non-existent state that consciousness ends up in. But unfortunately, that's actually the only way that consciousness can actually experience nothing, can actually experience non-existence, is if it was in a literal state of non-existence. But there's no such thing as a state of non-existence. Of course, even when antinatalists talk about a non-existent people, as I've already stated, it is not meant to be taken literally. When Benatar talks about non-existence in his asymmetry argument, he just does this because it helps him to just better illustrate his asymmetry argument, and that's all. But of course, believers of GSC unfortunately do talk about non-existence in a literal sense, and so it is for this simple reason that the very common accusation you always hear from a GSC person: atheists believe in nothingness, 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 nothingness. But this video has just simply proven that this argument of theirs is false, because it is based on an idiotic, baseless, self-contradictory premise that states that when consciousness stops existing, it now exists in a state of non-existence. Because of that, it ends up experiencing the state of non-existence it now inhabits. And so in this way, we can see that a lack of experience is not the same as an experience of nothingness. And so the atheist view of death, which states that consciousness ceases after the brain stops functioning, has nothing to do with black voids and dark oblivions. A lack of experience is just a lack of experience. Why should I fear death? If I am, death is not. If death is, I am not. Why should I fear that which can only exist when I do not? Epicurus. So that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching.